Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the second instalment of the MGF webinar series. I'm joined today by our Rail Sector Manager, Mark Norton, and Senior Engineer, Ben Gorrell, who will introduce themselves shortly. As discussed previously, these webinars aim to fill the void that real-life events cancellations have brought to the construction industry, as well as providing and encouraging conversations between companies to keep everybody safe at work, share industry best practice, and promote thought leadership in the industry. Just a short background on our company. MGF are a privately owned firm, fast approaching 40 years in the construction industry. Our primary focus is the provision of a comprehensive temporary works solutions service using wholly in-house resources. Recognised as one of the market leaders in the design, manufacture and provision of modular and bespoke excavation and structural support systems, we are committed to providing our customers with the complete engineered solutions and promoting best practice for all types of excavation and structural works with supporting safety, piling, and lifting departments. Our latest development is a branch into the Structural Support Solutions division, offering comprehensive propping solutions that are less intrusive, minimises programme time and risk, whilst ensuring that the integrity of the supported structure is maintained. In terms of our rail sector, we have a team of highly specialised sales representatives and engineers that are dedicated to the rail sector and are available for assistance whenever needed. The team are supported by the company list of awards and accreditations, including being risks audited and accredited, a member of the Temporary Works Forum, and achieving Supply Chain Sustainability School Gold membership. This webinar is slightly different to the previous in that we're running it across both Zoom and YouTube, so please let us know any feedback on the platform that you're watching on. Throughout the webinar, we encourage you to ask questions, which we'll go through at the end. On YouTube, you can do this through the box on the right of the screen when you're not in full screen mode. And for this, you do need a Google or Gmail account, which is really quick and easy to set up. Or through Zoom, there is a chat box at the bottom and a Q&A box also, which we're monitoring. So whichever way you answer your question, we will get to it. Alternatively, you can send your questions through as an email to marketing@mgf.co.uk. We will be running a poll through this webinar, but these are only available at the minute through Zoom. So if you'd like to sign up to participate in that and you're watching on YouTube currently, the link for the Zoom webinar should be in the chat box now. So let's get started. I'll hand over to Mark now, and I hope everybody enjoys. Before we start with Mark, we are going to put the poll on screen now, so everyone's got some time to do that. So I'll put that on now. So if everyone would like to engage with that, and there we go.
Right, thanks Emma, thanks for the introduction, very comprehensive there. What I'd like to do, what we are aiming to do this morning, is to give an overview via this webinar of how we at MGF see temporary works innovation in the rail sector. As we're aware, innovation comes in many formats, and what we'd like to do is give an overview of how we see things. So by virtue of an introduction, what I'd like to do is just give you an overview of myself, really. My name is Mark Norton, National Rail Sector Manager with MGF. I'm a civil and structural engineer with 11 years temporary works experience at MGF, manager of the MGF rail business, and I've been 23 years on site in senior positions before joining MGF with Tier 1 UK contractors. I'm TWC and PTS accredited.
Thanks, Mark, and good morning, everyone. My name's Benjamin Gorrell. I'm a senior engineer with MGF. I've been with the company now for about 4 years as senior engineer and engineer. So before that, I was at multidisciplinary consultancies as a geotechnical engineer for 4 years. I've recently passed my chartership review with the ICE, and I also have temporary works coordinator and PTS accreditations.
Okay, so in terms of an agenda for this morning's webinar, what we'd like to do is just give an overview really of how we see innovation in the rail sector. And this can come in various guises really. So principally by collaboration, also by process and design, products, and we're going to touch on some case studies as well. So how and why is rail different? Well, the rail infrastructure is a very dangerous environment. In the past, the distant past, as in the turn of the century, there were some major incidents and accidents on the rail infrastructure, which identified shortcomings in the maintenance of the infrastructure, particularly when works were going ahead. Controls were introduced by Network Rail, which must be strictly adhered to when working on the rail. These are the Network Rail standards. Works on the rail are frequently done, as we know, at unsociable hours, i.e. at the night or in the dark or in public holidays. They're a high-risk environment for operatives and the general public, and a clear understanding needs to be had of the industry and the Network Rail standards. So how are the working practices critical when working on the rail? It's normally done in short possessions, either at weekends or alternatively at bank holidays and things like Christmas. And there's a pressure on outputs and increased safety risk. It requires much planning and organisation. The works must be done safely and in line with work plans. And the consequences of getting the works or the temporary works or the works itself going wrong are huge. Safety is compromised. Works can be incomplete, which results in possession overruns. There can be severe financial penalties and loss of reputation and future works. So an opportunity exists for us to assist contractors to provide innovative solutions via quality designs, a full service, including Network Rail forms, getting it right first time, via bespoke products and services, and ultimately a safer, faster, and improved efficiency. So who does the work? The work is principally done by many parties. We typically engage with contractors, but we can also engage with the principal contractors. So it could be the subcontractors, principal contractors, but we also have an interface with designers, principal designers, and also in many situations, the client as well. So we've just done a poll before, and thanks for completing the poll. If you've engaged in that, that's very good of you. We asked a question: at what grip stage would you typically engage temporary work specialists? And there's some interesting answers there. 28% said grip 4, 20% said grip 5, and 8% said grip 6. I have to say, we primarily get involved and engaged at grip stage 6. Those are the grip stages which are shown on there. So we won't go through that in massive amounts of detail, but certainly 4, 5, and 6 are the areas where it moves from development of the design through detailed design and into construction, test, and commission. So typically we tend to get engaged at 6, and we have to say it would be nice, or I think a good objective would be to, if we could get engaged at certainly at 5, but if possible, it would be great to get engaged with the industry and the contractors at level 4 regarding upcoming schemes. I think we think that temporary works is quite often one of the first activities required, but the last thought of, and that was the theme of our colleagues' webinar on the previous webinar that was delivered a month ago by 2 of our colleagues. So typically we see involvement, as we say, at grip 6. It would be good, however, if we could get involved earlier. Now we'll come on to the reasons for that shortly. There's an opportunity to highlight risks, provide solutions that may affect program and add cost. The opportunity is there to highlight the risks, provide solutions that may affect program and add cost. Principally by us getting involved earlier, we hopefully can reduce cost. We often need to work on contractors' critical path activities and are not always thought through. Temporary works is not always thought through in terms of the process. and not least, Network Rail need time to approve. We can assist in this regard and sooner that perhaps anticipated via ECI, as in the sooner we get involved, the more we can help in terms of the thinking regards temporary works and come up with innovative solutions. We also like to get involved with tender appraisals and conceptuals, and we can, in that process, identify risks and look at getting engaged with the temporary work schedules with the contractors. So what are the requirements of the temporary works supplier? Well, they must have experienced rail sector staff, must be able to produce an agreed brief, which is key, and the scope of the works agreed early. We need to do design once and only once and avoid reworking if possible and cut out waste for all. Design briefs must be clear and easily understood by the temporary works designers. Not always possible to visit sites on the early days by the designer. Quite often it could be one of our sales team who are visiting the site, and what we need to do is get that brief, a clear brief, across to our designers so they can work on it. The design produced must be simple to understand and readily understood by all in the chain, be it Network Rail, the principal contractors, the subcontractors, and ultimately the operatives and the machine drivers and everybody who's doing the work. The designs must be clear and concise and be able to be quickly approved. The temporary works supplier should be available for on-site support if required via safe systems of work guides, for example, toolbox talks. Things change and we need to be there to support the contractor when they do change, if they do. And we must have robust procedures on and compliance in line with the Network Rail standards. So in terms of innovation, which is why we're here obviously this morning, the designs produced should be quality and embrace the latest technology and products. Network Rail and the contractors are looking for the best, safest, most economical solution backed up by design. Network Rail and the principal contractors want to know there's a design process in place, and this is transparent. The quality of the brief produced is key and will determine the quality of the design. We prepare this and share this with the customer early days for input. We employ the latest design software and drafting tools like 3D Revit, which are clear and concise. And Ben will come on to those with some examples a little bit later. And the scope of the works needs to be agreed very early in our appointment. The MGF offer a full range, including Form 2s, Forms 3s, and then we need to back this up ultimately when the job is done with safe systems of work, video animation, toolbox talks, and then obviously utilize the best products that are available in the market for the job, which need to be available nationally, and also get continuous improvement and listen to feedback from our customers and reinvest through our R&D team. So early collaboration, the first stage of our collaboration is really to get an inquiry from the customer via our technical sales team. As Emma mentioned earlier on, we have a dedicated team of salespeople up and down the country who work very closely with the rail sector customers. We're a small team, but we operate nationally. We review the information which is provided to us, and quite often we need to request additional information if the information as provided is not complete. But principally what we're looking for is a full suite of drawings, as much ground investigation information as we can, copies of the borehole logs which are relevant, photographs. Quite often we get a customer brief, and also we need to know about services overground and underground, and also be able to identify hazards. And these might be working at the toe of an embankment, or on top of an embankment, or within an embankment, for example. Where possible, we like to arrange a face-to-face visit, albeit in this current climate we're in at the moment, it's pretty difficult to do that in some situations. So we're embracing modern technology with things like Microsoft Teams, but at worst case scenario, probably a phone call. And we'd like to agree the scope and timing early on. An EDRF is prepared, which we call an electronic design request form, and we prepare that online. And Ben will show some examples later on of how we get the information back from the EDRF. And we submit a copy to the customer for verification that we've interpreted it correctly. We can either produce a conceptual design for discussion, or we can produce a design for approval. And ultimately, when we've got comments back, we then go to AFC for construction. We agree the timing and process, including the approvals by Network Rail. So it's true to say that as much time as we can in terms of the process is to the benefit of the project, and that's why we did the poll a little bit earlier on, to say that if we can be engaged at level at GRIP 4 or 5, it's probably going to be more advantageous to the project rather than being engaged at GRIP 6. And then we need to follow the process through, keeping the customers updated and agreeing any variations in the ground. Obviously, if things change in the ground, we need to be there to back up with the changes and come up with a design to reflect those changes. So thanks for that. I'll now hand over to my colleague Ben, who will talk us through the design process and some case studies specific to rail.
Thanks, Mark. So I'm going to talk through some project examples with some animations. But firstly, I'd just like to introduce that we have a dedicated rail team within our design department, compliant with all the relevant codes of practice for temporary works listed at the top, including the British Standard 5975, also sometimes Euro codes, and all the relevant network rail codes, such as engineering management, assurance in building and civil engineering works, and geotechnical design. In addition to this, we have some quality systems, including the EDRF that Mark's touched on, to make sure we can identify all hazards prior to carrying out a design, and a design management system. So this helps our rail team to review and categorize all designs, as shown there on the right, with a color coordinated system based on the risk and complexity of each design, which means that the correct designers and qualified checkers can be involved in the designs in accordance with the checking categories in the British Standard and also the Network Rail Code, the Civil Code 003. Other initiatives include Safe by Design. We tune into the guidance notes produced by Safe by Design. We're an active member of the Temporary Works Forum, which focuses on best practice within the industry. And our research and development team look at new products and innovative products quite consistently. In addition to the design and the calculations, we have a BIM team to level 2, which we basically use Revit software, which is capable of producing IFC files that can then be compatible with Navisworks or any other master file system. In addition to this, we have Autodesk Revit components on the website, free to download, that can be then incorporated into any master file. And this helps to detect any clashes with permanent works, whether it be existing permanent works or new permanent works or neighbouring temporary works. It helps to coordinate basically and have some spatial coordination. So this maintains speed, but with a quality output and 3D views, which is essential for identifying hazards. And I'll show some examples of that later. In addition, we have some auto equipment scheduling as part of the Revit offering, which basically this will list the weight and cost of each component. And we have some initiatives to also have some extra items such as embodied carbon. So just to show some examples, this one produced by Revit shows a 3D view of an excavation between a rail cutting and rail tracks. We've got one here within an existing station. And what I'm going to focus on now is a UTX or an under-track crossing excavation with our GRP Vertishore equipment and boxes at either side to install the chambers. So challenges involved with under-track crossings basically include very short possession times, constrained sites, where there's can be a limitation on using heavy plant and equipment. And also, as the temporary works or excavation crosses the rail line, there can be clashes with, say, existing cable ducts or rail tracks. So our research and development team produced this GRP equipment, glass reinforced polymer, that's very lightweight and transportable by hand. It can also be installed by hand using slings. And basically we have a box system as shown here on the left and a Vertishore system, which allows gaps between units. So this will accommodate any rails, cables or infrastructure that may clash with a normal temporary work solution. In addition, it's very sustainable with low embodied carbon and energy throughout the life cycle compared to aluminium or steel equivalents. It's non-conductive, which makes it very useful on the railway. And very easy to assemble, and I'll show some examples on the installation sequences in a moment. Now, the gaps between the units work through soil arching. So each unit is preloaded with jacks to a specified pressure, which generates micro movements in the soil and generates an arch. So any operative can enter between two fully preloaded units. The units themselves are basically installed. There's a trench pre-dug prior to lowering in the units. And during the design process, we'll check the site investigation and boreholes to make sure that the ground conditions are competent and will allow soil arching to take place. And then these checks are also carried out by the site team, as shown on the standard solution extract here. So now all operatives, as mentioned, can enter between two preloaded jacks. So these are some applications on the railway. The top photos just show the operatives in the correct positions between two preloaded units. And the bottom photos show a night possession with a box being installed for a chamber. So as the UTX solutions are basically reviewed by our design team as Cat 0, so very low risk, simple, shallow designs. They're also applicable with standard solutions, which has been generated by our team over the last couple of years. This is where a standard design calculation has been undertaken based on predetermined conditions. Our team will then review each site specifically to make sure that all those conditions are satisfied. This drawing is then issued to the site team, and there are some checks to be carried out prior to installing the equipment, such as a check of the site conditions and surroundings, followed by a check of the ground conditions. And once the equipment has been installed, the other checks can take place while the equipment is in situ, such as making sure the gaps between the units are to the specified gaps for soil arching, and ensuring that the GRP panels have a clean, are pressed firmly against the soil or the trench face to ensure soil arching. And with this package, there's a safe system of work, which includes animated figures showing a full installation sequence. So before I move on to platform locations and showing some examples there, I'm just going to show a short video just to reiterate what I've been saying about the UTX equipment. So for all UTX works, the railway will be under full possession. And this example shows our GRP Vertishaw units with backing boards being installed to lay the cable ducts under the railway. So again, it can be installed by hand and lowered into the excavation using slings. Any voids must be backfilled. The units are then pressurized at a predetermined PSI pressure prior to laying the cable ducts and removing the equipment and backfilling the excavation. So now I'll just go back to the slides and platform locations. So there's a current incentive to make platforms more accessible. On tight restricted sites, to make sure there's a pedestrian interface to manage and safety and practicality challenges. Solutions include lightweight equipment for ease of transport and use, and a thorough design process basically to identify all the surrounding hazards.
Sorry, Ben, we can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that, everyone, technical issue. So just to reintroduce, platform locations is a current incentive to make platforms more accessible. Basically, the challenges are, this would be installing new stairways or new lift shafts, and there will be excavations within the platforms. And being in a platform location, it's very tight and restricted sites. There's a pedestrian interface to manage and some safety and practicality challenges associated with that. So our solutions would always include lightweight equipment where possible for ease of transport in and out of the sites and ease of use, encouraging efficient solutions. Also, we look at a very thorough design process to identify the surrounding rail hazards, which comes back to what Mark was saying in terms of early collaboration and making sure the brief identifies all the hazards on the site. And then we will look at installation sequences that align with the permanent work sequence. So I'm going to show an example, which was on a major UK station, where 2 foundations were to be installed, one larger one on the left here, and one smaller one to be jointed into the existing foundations. So surrounding these proposed excavations, there was an existing sewer, the platform foundations, the rail tracks, and existing bridge foundations and chambers. So quite a lot to take into account by design and by the site team. So we looked at, to install the first foundation on the left, we looked at a lightweight manhole brace and trench sheet system, which would basically have 2 frames, which would use shorter sheets then, not requiring a tow-in below the actual formation level of the excavation, to reduce the depth influence of the excavation and the effects on the surrounding infrastructure. Also, a dig and push installation method that would prevent pre-driving of sheets and any vibrations that could affect the surrounding infrastructure. As part of the installation sequence, we looked at an installation method that would involve a concrete blinding being cast after the 2 frames have been installed, allowing the second frame removal. This would then allow the foundations to be cast in one pour using the sheets as a back shutter for a very efficient permanent work solution. On the next excavation in between the 2 foundations, we looked at a lightweight whaler system, which would be situated between the concrete with sheets at either end to support the ground. And this was installed with the same installation and removal sequence to aid permanent works efficiency. So as part of this solution, we had a very clear drawing system with permanent works underlays and a numbered residual risk system, which highlighted any risks that couldn't be fully reduced by design and any site control measures required by the site team. So this was agreed with collaboration with the contractor, and a designer's risk assessment was included as part of the package, which included a risk assessment matrix showing the impact and probability of any risks. And this documented basically the design reduction measures and all control measures to be carried out on site, and was supplied with a form 2 and 3 simultaneously. So now this is a more recent scheme, which just shows the advantages of our latest use of Revit software, where we have 2 excavations on different platforms to install a new footbridge structure, one adjacent to the rail tracks and one adjacent to an existing footbridge foundation. So these 2 solutions you can see on the Revit with the 3D view that all the surrounding hazards are shown very clearly, which assists our communication to the site team. And this is the actual installation, which was installed on site without any real difficulties. So just before we conclude, I'm going to show another example with an animation this time, just showing excavations we carried out adjacent to an existing retaining wall and a main line. So this was in a major UK city and involved a lot of collaboration with the principal designer and principal contractor. And the works would basically consist of digging a number of trenches adjacent to an existing Victorian wall to uncover the foundations of the wall and also to check the condition of the wall. So the ground level was different at all locations. So what I'm going to do now is just focus on 2 locations, one which was above an excavation above the railway and one that was an excavation below the actual tracks. So this involved, again, a lot of collaboration with the principal designer and principal contractor, with the principal designer carrying out global stability checks of the wall and the principal contractor monitoring the wall throughout the works. And the railway, being a main line, was fully operational during the works. So we had to make sure from MGF point of view that the installation sequences would have minimal effects on the existing infrastructure. So the first excavation, we determined a slip trench installation method to remove any hard driving conditions and minimize vibrations when driving sheets. This would then allow 2 frames to be installed, and we looked at a 2-sided excavation where one side of the excavation would be battered opposite to the retaining wall. This will prevent any load transfer through the frames, loading the wall at concentrated points. So next, we looked at a trench which was actually below the rail tracks. So our concerns here was excavating into the passive soil on one side of the retaining wall, and the active loads coming from the other side, and also being below the actual rail tracks, so considering railway loading. So as an installation, we looked at a dig and push lowering frame sequence, where 2 frames would be fully preloaded at all times, allowing another frame to be lowered during the installation process. This would make sure that the wall had support at all times, and we basically did hand calculations to check the active pressure, including the railway loading, to then determine the frames had capacity to resist this pressure and transfer it through to the soil on the other side of the excavation, and therefore minimise any impacts to the wall, which was fully monitored throughout this work. So that's the end of that example. I'm now going to hand over to Mark, who can conclude.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks, Ben. In terms of conclusions then, what I'd like to do really is just say, first and foremost, thanks to Ben and thanks for Emma for this webinar this morning. We'll be moving on to questions and answers shortly. But in conclusion, for innovation in the rail sector, temporary works, the key areas really are, it's vital that those delivering the temporary work solutions should be experienced. It's also very important to make sure that there's a collaborative approach. It's important to have those lines of communication open between us as a supplier and the contractor and the designers, and ultimately with Network Rail. We need robust processes and need to embrace current technology and also be innovative, looking at the future in terms of developments. We need quality designs which are easily understood by the whole of the site team in terms of who's delivering the work. And ultimately, we need the best products for the work available nationally. So thanks for your time. I'll pass back now to Emma, and Emma will take any questions if that's okay. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sure we can all agree that was very insightful. If anybody has any questions, please put them now into the question box on either Zoom or YouTube, whichever platform you're watching on. We'll be sending out a feedback form after this, and we'd like to ask anyone to fill that in with as much detail and feedback as possible. Bit of encouragement to get you to do that. We're offering a £50 Amazon voucher entered into a prize draw, and we're delighted that the winner of the last draw is Paul Kelly. So Paul will be in touch to arrange your prize. We're running these webinars on a monthly schedule. Our next is booked in for Wednesday, the 9th of December at 11 AM, and the topic for discussion is prop load monitoring. It will be hosted by our design manager, Stephen Barker, and we hope that you'll join us for this and any future webinars. You can find more details on these on our website. If there's anything further you'd like to discuss, if you'd like to arrange a catch up with either Ben or Mark, then you can do so by contacting MGF at marketing@mgf.co.uk. So we'll now take some questions. I'll just put everybody back on the screen. Okay, so the first question that's come in is, how long does it take for a full temporary works design, including F2 and F3s?
Shall I take that, Ben? Typically a design without the Form 2s and 3s, we can turn around within 3 days. With the Form 2s and 3s, we ask for another couple of days on top of that. So as an outside or as an outside position, we would say 5 days. However, it does depend on the complexity of the design. But I would say for 90–95% of the designs, we can turn them around, certainly with including a Form 2 and 3 within 5 days, but would strive to do that probably sooner. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, we've had another one. So how do MGF keep up to date with the rail initiatives and safe working practices? I think, Ben, are you okay to answer that one?
Sure. So basically, MGF are fully qualified personnel that's within our design team, and also our sales representatives fully PTS qualified with the temporary works coordinator training. In the design team, we have professional accreditations, and we also involve ourselves with the safety group as a company to get the safety bulletins from Network Rail. In addition, we are a member of the Temporary Works Forum, which promotes best practice within the industry. So we fully involve ourselves within all safety initiatives by Network Rail, keeping up to date and update our training within the business as well.
We have had a question in the chat box, so it's asking if we can clarify if the shoring panels are GRP.
I can answer that one, Emma. So the shoring panels, the backing boards that you saw on the video, are GRP, as are the whalers behind the backing boards. The jacks are aluminium, but they can have plastic covers to also prevent any conductivity. Thanks, Emma.
We've also had another one in the chat asking, are there any drivability problems with the GRP products?
I'm happy to answer that again, Emma. With the GRP products, it's always a pre-dug solution, so there's no drivability. As it's GRP, it probably wouldn't be suitable for any pre-drive, as it's likely to buckle. So we would always pre-dig a trench and lower the equipment into the trench and then install it. Thanks, Emma.
Okay, so we've had another one to ask whether we're able to visit site and offer toolbox talks with the kit before the works are done.
So I'll take that one, Emma, if that's okay. Yes, through the team of technical sales guys, the rail team, we're always able and willing and keen actually to come to site and meet the people who are going to do the works. And what we tend to do is we tend to get some kit down to site. It's very light, as they say, the lightweight GRP. We tend to get some kit to the site, show the guys on the site how to put the kit together so that they're fully appraised of how the kit works before the shutdown. It's a simple exercise to put the kit together using R-clips and pins. And what we aim to do at that point is run through some of the safety at work guides, and also the safe systems of work guides, and also the videos as well. Because we're keen to it, and we're also keen to attend any whiteboard meetings that are out there where people might want us to show the whole team how to pull the kit together, ready for the application when it's in the full shutdown. Hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, obviously at the minute with the COVID guidelines, everything that we are doing, all the operations that we're running are all adhering to the current government guidelines with COVID. We have had another question about standard solutions. So regarding standard solutions, are we able to get standard solutions in time for Christmas? Mark, do you want to take this one?
Yes, I will. Standard solutions, it's a growing part of our business, issuing standard solutions. What we need to do is engage with the people as soon as we can for Christmas. But I have to say, we are able now to still pull things together for Christmas. It's about 6 weeks away. And as I said previously, we can turn it around in a maximum. I would allow 2 weeks for our end, but obviously there may be an approval process as well for a couple of 3 weeks from the contractor. So the sooner you can talk to us about those standard solutions, we're keen to get moving on those for you. But the answer is yes.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'd just like to offer a final thank you for everyone that's attended, and to both Mark and Ben for their contributions, and everybody else in MGF that's been involved with making this happen. I hope everybody stays safe, and if everyone can fill back the feedback form, that'd be brilliant. So thank you, everyone. That's brilliant. Thanks.